Rian stood at the edge of the landing platform, looking out over the strange city. Towers of silver stone rose high into the air, their smooth shapes twisting like trees made of metal. Shining lights floated between them, moving without sound. He had traveled across the stars before, but this place felt different. It was not only new, it was alive in a way he could not describe. He adjusted the collar of his uniform. The humans had come to this world, Auria, on a peace mission. For years the Orients had been known to the galaxy as a proud and distant people. They rarely invited visitors, and when they did, it was always under strict watch. Today was the first time a human delegation had been welcomed into the royal city. Behind him, other humans moved carefully, speaking in quiet voices. They were ambassadors, scientists, and soldiers, all chosen for their calm manners. But even among them, Rian felt out of place. He was not a soldier, not a high-ranking leader. He had been chosen for a different reason. He was an engineer who had studied Orient signals and languages for years. The council believed his knowledge would help bridge the gap. Rian's heart raced when he saw the royal guards approach. They wore long cloaks that shimmered like liquid silver. Their eyes glowed faintly under the light. They moved with perfect order, as if every step was part of a dance. At their center was a tall woman with sharp features and glowing blue markings along her arms. She raised her hand. "You will be taken to the Hall of Stars," she said in a clear voice. "The princess will greet you there." The humans bowed slightly, and Rian followed in silence. As they walked, he could feel hundreds of Orient eyes watching from the balconies above. Their faces were unreadable. Orients were known for hiding their emotions. No smiles, no frowns, only calm and control. The Hall of Stars was a vast chamber filled with floating crystals that glowed softly, casting rainbows on the walls. At the far end, seated on a high platform, was Princess Lyra. She was dressed in flowing robes of silver and white, her long hair shining like strands of dark glass. Her eyes, a deep shade of violet, studied the humans as they entered. Rian felt his breath catch. She looked otherworldly, like the heart of a star given human form. The human leader stepped forward and gave the formal greeting. "We come in peace, as friends of Auria." The princess rose slowly. Her movements were graceful but firm, as though every action carried the weight of tradition. "Peace is spoken by many, yet proven by few," she said. Her voice was calm, yet it echoed in the chamber. "We shall see if your people's words hold truth." The ambassadors began their formal exchange, speaking of treaties, trade, and knowledge. Rian stayed behind, quietly observing. He knew his role was to listen and understand, not to speak unless asked. Still, his eyes kept returning to the princess. She was surrounded by nobles and guards, yet somehow she seemed a lone dot at last. One of the Orient ministers pointed at him. "This is the human who has studied our language. Let him speak." Rian stepped forward, trying to calm his nerves. He bowed slightly, then raised his head. "Princess Lyra," he said in the Orient tongue, careful with each word. "It is an honor to stand in your presence. I have studied your people for many years, but no study could prepare me for today." The princess tilted her head, her eyes narrowing in slight interest. "You speak our tongue well," she said, "only because your language is beautiful." Rian replied without thinking. The words slipped out naturally, not as part of a prepared speech. For a moment, silence filled the hall. The nobles stared at him in shock. The guards shifted uneasily. Compliments were not part of Orient custom. Their culture valued control, not open praise. Princess Lyra, however, reacted in a way no one expected. Her cheeks, pale as moonlight, slowly turned a shade of pink. Her violet eyes widened slightly before she quickly turned her face aside. Rian blinked, unsure what had happened. He had seen humans blush countless times, but he had never heard of an Orient doing so. Round the chamber, whispers spread. The nobles exchanged looks of disbelief. She changed color. Impossible. The royal blood does not show weakness, yet it was true. The princess had blushed, trying to recover. Rian bowed again. "Forgive me if my words were unfit for your hall. I spoke only the truth." Princess Lyra glanced back at him, her expression unreadable now. Her voice was steady, though softer than before. Truth is rare. Your words are accepted. The formal meeting continued, but the air had shifted. Every time Rian spoke, the nobles watched him carefully, as if expecting another strange effect. The princess kept her gaze steady on the discussions. Yet now and then her eyes flickered toward him, quick and uncertain. When the meeting ended, the humans were escorted to their quarters. As they walked, Rian felt the weight of curious stares. His fellow humans whispered to him in low voices. "What did you say to her?" One asked. "Nothing," Rian answered honestly. "I only said her language was beautiful." They shook their heads in disbelief. To them, it was just a polite remark. To the Orients, it was something far greater. That night, Rian stood by the balcony of his quarters, looking out at the glowing city. He could not stop replaying the moment in his mind. The princess's face, the way it changed color, the sudden silence that followed. Why had his simple words caused such a reaction? Far across the city, in her private chamber, Princess Lyra sat alone. She pressed her hand to her cheek, remembering the warmth she had felt. No one in her life had ever spoken to her in such a way. No one had told her that something she carried her voice. Her language was beautiful. For the first time in her life, she had felt something she could not explain. A soft rush in her chest, a quickness in her breath, and the strange warmth on her skin. She had shown it openly, and the court had seen it. Yet instead of shame, she felt curiosity. She whispered softly to herself. The humans spoke in a way I have never heard. Why did it touch me so? Thus began a new chapter for both human and Orient. A single compliment, simple and honest, had opened a door that no treaty or weapon ever could. The following morning, the royal court of Oria buzzed with whispers. The vast marble halls, usually calm and orderly, now carried voices that echoed with surprise and unease. Everywhere Rian went, he felt eyes on him. The guards watched longer than usual. The nobles lowered their voices when he passed, and even the servants gave curious glances before quickly looking away. Word had spread about the princess. She had blushed in front of the court. The impossible had happened, and all knew it. For the Orients, emotion was a guarded thing. They believed feelings weakened the mind and gave power to others. To them, strength meant calmness, and calmness meant control. Yet the human had spoken a few words, and their princess had revealed something none of them had ever seen. Rian walked through the palace gardens, trying to escape the heavy attention. The gardens stretched wide, filled with glowing plants that shimmered under the pale Orient sun. Small floating orbs drifted like fireflies, giving the paths a gentle light. He breathed in the cool air and tried to clear his thoughts. I only said her language was beautiful. He murmured, still. That simple moment had changed everything. As he wandered, he noticed he was not alone. Two young Orient attendants stood nearby, whispering to each other. Their eyes flickered toward him, then away, as if afraid he would hear. Finally, one of them spoke up. "You are the human who made the princess change," she said carefully. Rian turned. "I did not mean to cause trouble." The second attendant shook her head. "You did not cause trouble. You revealed something. Many here do not know what to think of it." Rian gave a small bow, unsure how to respond. The attendant slipped away, leaving him more uneasy than before. Later, when the humans gathered for another council session, the tension in the air was heavy. The Orient nobles stood stiff and silent, their eyes sharp with judgment. Rian could feel their disapproval, though none spoke directly to him. Instead, they whispered among themselves, "This is dangerous. The princess cannot be seen as weak." Perhaps the humans brought something to bend her mind. Rian clenched his jaw. He had studied these people for years, admired their wisdom and order. He had never wished to insult them, yet now he had become the center of suspicion. When Princess Lyra entered the chamber, the hall fell into silence. She moved with the same calm grace as before, her face unreadable. No trace of the blush remained, yet Rian wondered if she remembered it as clearly as he did. The council session began with formal reports. Trade routes, defense matters, agreements of science and learning were discussed. But the weight of the earlier event hung over everything. Each time Rian spoke, the nobles listened too closely. Each time he answered, The guards shifted their feet. Finally, one bold minister raised the matter. He was tall, his eyes sharp as steel. "Princess," he said, "we cannot ignore what happened yesterday. The human's words made you show what no Orient should reveal. If such weakness is seen by enemies, it could endanger us all." A heavy silence fell. The human delegation shifted uneasily. Rian felt his chest tighten. He wanted to speak, to defend himself, but this was not his place. Princess Lyra lifted her head. Her voice was even and steady. "A blush is no weakness. It was only a moment." The minister frowned. "And yet no moment in this court goes unnoticed. Already the halls whisper. The people question." Lyra's gaze turned briefly toward Rian. "Then let them question. Truth does not hide forever." The session ended soon after, but the unease remained. That evening, as Rian returned to his quarters, a royal guard approached him. The guard was the same woman who had first guided them from the landing platform. Her face was unreadable, her silver cloak swaying softly as she walked. "The princess requests your presence," she said. Rian froze. "Now, yes, follow." He walked behind her through long winding corridors. The walls glowed faintly with embedded crystals, casting shifting patterns across the floor. At last, they stopped before a tall door marked with the royal seal. The guard bowed and opened it. Inside, Princess Lyra stood by a window overlooking the city. The room was quiet, filled with shelves of glowing scrolls and delicate ornaments. She turned when he entered, her violet eyes calm but thoughtful. "Rian of Earth," she said softly, "do you know what you did yesterday?" Rian bowed. "I fear I offended you, Princess." I spoke without thinking. Her lips curved, almost into a smile, though faint. "You did not offend me. You surprised me." He hesitated. "I did not mean to cause whispers in your court. The court has always whispered," she said, turning back to the window. "They seek order in all things, yet order does not silence curiosity. They fear what they do not understand. Yesterday, they feared you." Rian stepped closer, careful not to overstep. "And you, Princess, do you fear me?" She paused, her hand resting lightly against the glass. "I do not know. Your words touch me in a way I have never known. Among my people, no one speaks in such ways. We do not say beauty, or kindness, or grace. We show duty, strength, and calm. When you spoke, I felt something strange. It made me show it before them all." Her voice grew quieter. "They call it weakness. Yet I do not feel weak." Rian's chest tightened, not with fear, but with understanding. He had studied languages all his life, but this was more than words. This was meaning, connection. He bowed his head. "Princess Lyra, where I come from, we believe words can give strength. To tell someone they are wise, or brave, or kind is not weakness. It is honor. It lifts them higher." She looked at him again, her eyes searching his face. "Strange," she whispered. "Your people give power with words. We guard power by silence. Perhaps that is why your words felt heavy to me." They stood in silence for a long moment. Outside, the city glowed like a sea of stars. Finally, she spoke again. "I will not forget what happened. The council will not forget either. Some will use it against me, but I will not forbid you from speaking. Truth, even when strange, is better than silence." Rian bowed deeply. "I thank you, Princess." When he left her chamber, his mind was full of questions. He knew now that his words had touched something deep in her, something even she did not fully understand. But what would it mean for the days to come? Far from his thoughts, in the council chamber, the nobles gathered again without the princess. Their whispers turned sharper, their eyes colder. "The human is dangerous," one said. "He bends the princess with words. What will happen if he bends the people?" Another replied, "We must watch him closely. Perhaps even remove him." The voices grew darker as the night deepened. Rian did not know it yet, but the simple moment of kindness he had given had already set forces in motion, forces that would test both him and the princess in ways neither could imagine. The days that followed were full of careful balance. The humans stayed in the royal city under constant watch, while the Orient nobles kept their eyes sharp on every meeting. Still, despite the tension, something began to change between Rion and Princess Lyra. At first, it was only small moments. When he entered the great hall, her gaze would flicker toward him. When she spoke to the humans, her voice would sometimes soften when addressing him. It was subtle, yet enough for those watching to notice. The nobles whispered, but no one dared confront her directly. Then came the invitation. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky glowed with shifting shades of gold and violet, a royal messenger arrived at Rion's chamber. The message was short. The princess requests a private study meeting tonight in the library. Rion stared at the words for a long moment. He knew what it meant. Orions value privacy very little in matters of court. For a princess to meet someone alone was unusual, even dangerous. Still, he felt no hesitation. He wanted to understand why she sought him out. The library was vast, its shelves filled with crystal tablets and glowing scrolls. Strange floating lanterns hovered near the ceiling, casting soft light over the polished floor. Rion entered quietly, finding Princess Lyra seated at a long table. She wore a simple robe of pale blue, less formal than her royal garments. For the first time, she looked less like a distant ruler and more like a young woman. "You came," she said, her voice steady but quieter than usual. "You asked," Rion replied. "I would not refuse." She motioned for him to sit. On the table lay several scrolls, their symbols glowing faintly. "These are records of our people," she explained. "Histories, teachings, rules of the court. I told the council that I wished to study human diplomacy with your help." "That is true, but it is not the only reason I called you here." Rion leaned forward. "Then what is the other reason, princess?" Her violet eyes met his. For a moment she hesitated, then spoke. "I wish to understand why your words affect me. I do not wish to fear them. I wish to learn." Rion nodded slowly. "Then let us speak openly. In my world, we often share thoughts through stories. Would you like to hear one?" She tilted her head. "A story?" "Yes, a simple one." So he told her about Earth. He spoke of children playing in wide green fields, of families sitting together and laughing over meals, of the way humans told each other they were proud, kind, or beautiful. He explained how such words gave comfort, how they made bonds stronger. As he spoke, Princess Lyra listened with deep focus. Her hands rested still on the table, but her eyes never left his face. When he described laughter, she raised her brow slightly, as if the idea was strange. When he spoke of beauty, her cheeks colored again, faint but visible. "You speak of things so freely," she said at last. "Yet here, such things would never be spoken aloud. If a mother tells a child she is proud, it is seen as weakness. If a leader calls someone brave, it gives power that may be used against them. So we remain silent." Rion smiled gently. "But silence does not remove truth. It only hides it. Do your people never wish to hear such things?" She looked down, thoughtful. "Perhaps they do, but they fear it. We are taught that to need such words is shame. Then maybe shame has hidden something important." Rion said, "On Earth, words are not weakness. They are strength. They build trust. They carry love. They can heal wounds no medicine can reach." Her gaze lifted again, softer this time. "When you speak, Rion, I feel something I cannot explain. It unsettles me, but also, it feels warm." They sat in silence for a moment, the air heavy with unspoken meaning. Then Princess Lyra opened one of the glowing scrolls. "Teach me more," she said. From that night on, they met often under the excuse of study. Rion shared more stories of Earth, while Lyra explained Orion history and law. Slowly, their differences became bridges instead of walls. He learned that Orions had no words for many emotions humans spoke of daily. There was no direct word for joy, no word for kindness, no word for affection. Instead, they had terms for balance, order, and strength. To them, life was a river to be controlled, not a fire to be felt. Lyra, in turn, learned that humans placed great power in the heart as well as the mind. She listened to tales of poets, songs, and simple gestures of care. Each time, she asked careful questions, her curiosity growing. Their bond deepened, and soon others noticed. One evening, as Rian left the library, a group of Orient nobles stood waiting. Their faces were stern. "You walk too often with the princess," one said coldly. "Remember your place, human. She is not for you." Rian bowed slightly, choosing respect. "I walk where she allows me. I do nothing without her request." The noble narrowed his eyes. "Be careful. Some doors are not meant to be open." They turned and left, their cloaks sweeping behind them. Rian stood alone, troubled. He knew the risk was growing, yet he could not bring himself to stop. Something told him that what was happening between him and Lyra was important, not just for them, but for their people. The next day, during a council session, tension grew thicker. The ministers spoke of external threats from rival alien factions, warning that Oria must remain strong. They argued about defenses and alliances, their voices sharp. Rian stayed quiet, but his eyes met Lyra's across the hall. In that single look, he saw trust. She valued his presence even in silence. Later that evening, as they studied once more, Lyra set aside the scrolls. "Rian," she said, her voice low, "the council grows restless. They believe my closeness with you weakens me. Some even say you control me." Rian's chest tightened. "That is not true. I know," she answered. "But truth is not always what people believe. Still, I do not wish to stop meeting you." He met her eyes firmly. "Nor do I." She studied him for a long moment, then spoke softly. "When you said my language was beautiful, I felt something that frightened me. But now I think, perhaps it was not fear. Perhaps it was something else." Her cheeks colored once more, faint but clear. Rian felt warmth in his chest at the sight. "You do not need to fear it," he said gently. "Whatever it is not weakness." In that quiet library, the bond between them grew stronger than before. They both knew it carried risk. They both knew the court would not approve, yet neither could deny it any longer. Outside, in the shadows of the council chamber, the nobles whispered again. "The human has drawn her in. She listens to him more than to us. This cannot continue." But inside her heart, Princess Lyra had already chosen a path. For the first time in her life, she wanted not silence, not duty, but truth. And she had found it in the words of a human who dared to speak what no Orient ever would. The peace of Oria did not last long. One morning, a fleet of dark ships appeared at the edge of the planet's atmosphere. Their shapes were jagged and sharp, moving like predators circling their prey. Alarms rang across the city as Orions rushed to their posts. Guards filled the streets, and the council gathered urgently. Princess Lyra stood at the front of the council chamber, her posture straight and commanding. Her violet eyes, once soft with curiosity, now held focus and determination. Rian stood beside her, silently observing the tension. He had never seen a people so prepared for confrontation. Every Orient moved with precision, yet the fear of the unknown lingered in the air. "This is the fleet of the Kalari," one minister said gravely. "They demand tribute or threaten to destroy our cities." Another spoke quickly. "We cannot surrender. Our history is full of resistance. But if we fight, millions may die." The council erupted in debate, voices overlapping, anger and fear mixing together. Some ministers argued for negotiation, others for immediate defense. The arguments were heated, but no one suggested a clear solution. Rian stepped forward carefully, bowing slightly. "Princess Lyra," he said in a low voice, "may I speak?" Her eyes met his. "Speak, Rian." "I have studied the Kalari," he began. "They respect strength and strategy, but they also respect courage and unity. Your council fears them, yet they underestimate what can happen if your people work together. If you show both preparation and confidence, the Kalari may hesitate." A few ministers glanced at him, but the rest ignored his words. Lyra, however, listened closely. She felt a strange surge of energy at his suggestion. It was bold, human-like in its simplicity, yet it carried a truth she recognized. "We cannot wait," she said firmly. "Rian is right. We must act with courage and intelligence. Fear alone will not save us." Some nobles stiffened, shocked by her decisiveness. Others whispered approval. The princess had chosen to speak openly, not hiding behind tradition or protocol. Her decision was bold, and it carried the weight of her people's future. The next hours were filled with preparation. Rian worked alongside Orient strategists, offering suggestions for communication, navigation, and defensive coordination. He advised them on ways to signal the fleet while showing confidence, and on strategies that would demonstrate both strength and intelligence. Lyra oversaw the operations, ensuring that every command was precise and clear. In the command chamber, Rian studied the holographic projections of the Kalari fleet. "They are watching for hesitation," he explained. "If we show unity, they may reconsider. Do not fear their numbers. Fear is their weapon." Lyra nodded, absorbing every word. "Then we will act without fear. The Orions move as one." Messages were sent to the Kalari leaders, showing readiness and coordination. Ships moved into defensive formations, patrols increased, and the citizens were informed that the royal family and military were fully prepared. When the Kalari fleet finally landed, they expected hesitation. Instead, they were met by an organized and calm force, led by a princess who spoke with confidence and authority. Rian watched as she stood at the forefront, addressing the enemy through the communication network. "This is Princess Lyra of Oria," she said firmly. "We will not surrender our cities or our people. If you wish for battle, it will be met with courage. If you wish for peace, you may leave now with honor intact." There was silence on the other side. The Kalari leaders were surprised. They had anticipated fear, doubt, or hesitation, yet none appeared. They spoke among themselves, their voices sharp and tense. Rian glanced at Lyra. "Your courage is stronger than theirs expected," he said quietly. She gave a small nod. "I learned it from your words, Rian. Courage is not only strength of body, it is strength of heart." The Kalari hesitated, then demanded a demonstration. They wanted to test if the Orient forces were bluffing. Lyra coordinated a series of tactical maneuvers, showing both the skill of the Orions and their unity. Ships moved in perfect patterns, soldiers executed precise drills, and communication was flawless. Rian advised from the side, guiding small adjustments. "Let them see coordination, not chaos," he said. "They will recognize intelligence, and intelligence commands respect." Hours passed, and the Kalari began to retreat slightly. They had expected easy victory, but they had met a force stronger than they imagined. Lyra remained calm, issuing orders with clarity and confidence. The princess who had once blushed at a simple compliment now led her people in defense of the planet. Back in the council chamber, some ministers whispered their approval, unable to hide it. Others remained skeptical, but even they could not deny the result. Lyra's courage had united the people, showing a strength that went beyond weapons or numbers. At last, the Kalari fleet withdrew entirely, leaving Oria in peace. The city erupted in celebration, citizens cheering for the royal family and the humans who had helped them. Guards saluted, and nobles acknowledged the princess's leadership. Rian and Lyra stood together on the balcony overlooking the city. The stars glimmered above, reflecting the joy of the people below. "You are remarkable," Rian said softly. "The council may not have believed it, but you inspired them." "You inspired me." Lyra turned to him, her violet eyes warm. "I would not have acted so boldly without you. Your words, your guidance, your belief, it gave me strength I did not know I possessed." Rian smiled. "Then we learned from each other. Courage is stronger when shared." For the first time, Lyra allowed herself a small smile. Her cheeks colored faintly, not from embarrassment, but from warmth and gratitude. The human who had complimented her so simply had now become her partner in courage. In the days that followed, the court began to change. Nobles who had doubted her leadership saw that emotion and strength could coexist. The Orients slowly began to understand that words, kindness, and trust could be as powerful as discipline and control. Rian remained by her side, not as a ruler, but as a friend and guide. The bond they shared, once questioned and feared, had now become a symbol of unity and wisdom. Even the council, while cautious, began to accept the lessons of these days. They saw that a blush or a moment of warmth did not weaken a leader. Instead, it could reveal courage, understanding, and humanity, the qualities that made a true ruler strong. In the quiet of the palace library, after the celebration had ended, Lyra turned to Rian. Do you remember the day you first complimented me? Rian chuckled softly. How could I forget? It changed everything. She nodded, her cheeks colored slightly. I understand now. That moment was not just words. It was the start of something greater. It showed me that strength does not mean hiding oneself. It means embracing truth, even if it is unfamiliar. Rian bowed slightly. And you embraced it beautifully, Princess. Lyra smiled fully this time, her blush more confident than uncertain. Then perhaps our people will learn to embrace it as well. The city outside glowed in the light of Orion lamps and human technology. Peace had returned, but it was a new peace. One strengthened by understanding, trust, and courage. And in the quiet moments between the stars, the human and the princess knew that together they had not only defended a planet, but also changed the hearts of two civilizations forever. The threat of the Kalari had passed, leaving Oria quiet and peaceful once more. The city glowed under the soft light of floating orbs, and citizens returned to their daily lives, still talking of the courage their princess had shown. But for Rian and Princess Lyra, the days after the crisis brought a new kind of challenge, understanding what their bond meant. For the future of both their worlds, the council met again, this time in a calmer atmosphere. Nobles who had once whispered doubts now spoke with respect, though some remained cautious. The princess stood at the head of the chamber, poised and confident. Rian remained near the edge of the room, observing quietly, ready to offer advice only if asked. Your leadership has strengthened Oria more than I could have imagined, said one minister. The council now sees that courage and emotion can coexist with order and discipline. Lyra nodded, her violet eyes meeting the minister's. Our people are strong not because they hide their feelings, but because they face them. Strength is not silence alone. It is knowing when to act and when to speak. The words brought murmurs of approval. Some nobles shifted in their seats, realizing that what had once been viewed as a flaw, the blush that had startled the court, was now a symbol of wisdom and courage. After the session ended, Rian walked with Lyra through the palace gardens. The glowing plants swayed gently in the evening breeze. Floating orbs drifted past, casting rainbow-like reflections across the smooth stone paths. You have changed your people, Rian said quietly. Not with weapons, not with force, but with your courage. Lyra looked at him, a faint smile coloring her cheeks. We have changed each other, she replied. Your words, your understanding, they gave me strength when I was unsure. I learned that emotion can be power, and courage can be gentle. Rian nodded. I did not know a single compliment could start something so important. I never imagined it would grow into this. She laughed softly, a musical sound that blended with the rustling leaves. Neither did I, and yet it did. Perhaps that is the lesson. Small acts, if honest, can become great. In the days that followed, Rian continued to advise the council on diplomacy and trade, sharing knowledge of human methods while respecting Orion culture. Lyra observed him closely, always curious, always learning. They met often in the library, in the gardens, and sometimes simply walked together, speaking quietly about their people, their worlds, and their dreams. One afternoon, as the twin suns of Oria set, casting the sky in shades of gold and violet, Lyra invited Rian to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The streets were calm now, citizens moving about with a sense of security they had not known before. Do you ever wonder, Lyra asked softly, what our people will remember most about these days? Rian thought for a moment. They will remember the courage of a princess who did not hide. They will remember that unity and trust can be stronger than fear. And perhaps they will remember that simple words, spoken with truth, can change hearts. Lyra turned her gaze toward him, her violet eyes warm. You mean the words you spoke to me? The first words that made me blush? Rian smiled. Yes, those words. I never expected them to matter so much. They did, she said firmly. More than you know. They showed me that honesty and kindness are not weaknesses. They gave me courage, not only to face the Kalari, but to face my own people. I have learned something important about myself, Rian. What is that? He asked. That I can be both strong and human, she said, a faint pink coloring her cheeks again. I can be a leader and still feel, trust, an act from the heart, Rian bowed slightly, touched by her words. Then you have shown your people what true leadership means. The days passed peacefully, but the bond between human and princess continued to grow. Citizens began to notice the unusual friendship, and slowly, the Orions began to understand that emotion and expression were not weaknesses to be feared. The once stiff nobles watched as Lyra acted decisively yet openly, and they began to follow her example. One day, as Rian repaired a small communication device for the palace, Princess Lyra approached him. She stood quietly, watching his hands work. She said after a moment, "You have changed more than just my thoughts. You have changed how my people see the world. They now understand that kindness and courage can be together, that words can be as powerful as any weapon." Rian glanced up, smiling. "I only helped in small ways. You led the change. I only gave advice. You gave more than advice," Lyra said. "You gave truth, and truth has a strength that nothing else can match." The evening sky turned deep blue as the twin moons rose, casting a silver light over the city. They stood together quietly, not needing words for a while, sharing a peaceful understanding. Weeks later, the council held a ceremony to honor the bravery of the citizens and leaders. During the Kalari crisis, Lyra spoke before the gathered people, her voice strong and clear. She praised not only the warriors and strategists, but also the unity of all Orient citizens and the humans who had aided them. And so, she concluded, "We have learned that courage is not the absence of feeling. Strength is not the absence of heart. We can lead with intelligence and care, with wisdom and compassion. Let this day remind us that the future is brighter when we embrace both strength and humanity." The crowd erupted in cheers. Rian, standing quietly at the side, felt a swell of pride. He had come to Oria as a visitor, an observer, but he had become part of the story much larger than himself. After the celebration, Lyra found Rian in the gardens. She offered a hand, a gesture rarely seen in Oria outside close family or trusted allies. "Come with me," she said. They walked together under the glowing plants, their steps slow and deliberate. Finally, she stopped and turned to him. "Rian," she said, "there is something I wish to say." He looked at her, curiosity in his eyes. "Your words first reached me when you complimented me," she continued. Her cheeks colored faintly. "They were simple, but honest. They opened my mind and my heart. I want you to know that you are always welcome, not just as an advisor, but as a friend." Rian bowed slightly, deeply honored. "Princess Lyra, your friendship is the greatest gift I have ever received in any world." They stood in silence for a moment. The city quiet below, the stars above shining like witnesses to their bond. Months later, Rian prepared to leave Oria for a brief journey to Earth to deliver reports and share the successes of this mission. The princess walked with him to the landing platform, her expression calm, but her violet eyes shining with unspoken emotion. "Remember," she said softly, "what we have learned together. Strength is not only control. Courage is not only action. Words have power, and truth is stronger than silence." Rian nodded. "I will remember, princess, and I will return." As the ship lifted into the sky, Lyra watched, a faint smile on her lips, a blush coloring her cheeks in quiet warmth. She knew that her people had changed, and so had she. The human who had first complimented her had shown her that honesty, kindness, and courage could exist together. In the days that followed, the city of Oria thrived like never before. Nobles spoke openly with citizens. Words of respect and encouragement became more common, and the people learned to value emotion alongside discipline. The story of the princess who had blushed at a simple compliment became a legend, not as a tale of weakness, but as a lesson of strength and humanity. And somewhere among the stars, Rian looked back at Oria, smiling. A human had traveled far from home, and in doing so, had helped a princess see her own power, and a civilization see the strength of heart and mind together. The bond between human and princess remained strong, a bridge between worlds. It was proof that even the smallest words, spoken with honesty, could create great change. Oria was no longer just a proud civilization. It was a people united in courage, wisdom, and trust. And it had begun all because a human had spoken words she had never heard before. The future was bright, and both human and princess knew that together. They had opened a new chapter for Oria, a chapter full of hope, understanding, and the quiet power of a kind word spoken at the right time.